The right recipe? It's lunchtime. Wow, it's unbelievable. I thought weren't you bringing the lunch? Just kidding. What's lunch got to do with anything we talk about in leadership? Why you need to worry about lunch? Well, take your recipe. Hey, we got a package of ramen here. First of all, do you check all the components here? It says salt. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that was the soup-based ingredients. The noodle ingredients have enriched wheat flour, niacin, and so forth, all that stuff. But on the soup base, salt and sugar, and then monosodium glutamate, etc. Way down at the far end says powdered cooked chicken and cabbage extract. What does the right recipe have? It has, like any recipe for your lunch, it has to deal with... Hi, Lisa. Welcome. Welcome to lunch. The right recipe in our lives has to do with the right ingredients. What are we doing correctly? What are we putting in that, like the recipe, like our listing on the back of this package, the first couple components are the majority of what's in the package based on our labeling guidelines from the government. So we know on the soup base, salt and sugar are the number two, or 1 and 2. Well, that doesn't sound like a very healthy. You would expect the chicken to be up at the top, not salt and sugar. So there's very little chicken, but lots of salt, lots of sugar, lots of monosodium glutamate. What are we putting into our lives if we looked at what we do on a daily basis? And there's many things. There's meals, there's laundry, there's food, whatever we're doing. But one thing we always overlook or tend to put down and put off to the side is, reading a book, watching something that provides some value for our minds. We sit there in front of the TV and think, NASCAR racing, nothing wrong with NASCAR racing, but we think that racing will help us grow. Yeah, there's team building and such that goes on in the track, but we're just watching, we're just observing. Are we really taking any of that into our workplace, into our joy? So what's for lunch? And there's ingredients, but there's also a recipe. And the right components together will create the product, whether it's ramen or whether it's your personal development. Homemade spaghetti here. Tomatoes, garlic, basil, slowly cooked with love. Isn't that nice? Thank you, Lisa. What are you cooking? What is your recipe? What are you factoring in for your day? Does it include some time for reflection? Does it include time for thinking about what happened yesterday and how you're going to make it better? Is there something in your calendar today to read, to write, to journal your thoughts? What's going in the pot? What's going in this pot right here? What's going in this pot? Nothing right now. So if you were this pot, if you were this pot, what would you be putting in it every day? Well, some water, that would be good, right? Man does not live by bread alone. Got to have some water. Well, there's some other things too that people talk about. But, maybe faith, you would put in some, reflections or devotions. Maybe there's some prayers that you do daily that you would put in there. Maybe it's, having a cup of coffee, might pour that in there. Maybe it's a book. Maybe you're going to stick a book inside there. Maybe it's chimes. Maybe you need a mixing bowl first to get it all prepared. Get all those dry ingredients together and stick it in. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think is inside you for the right recipe? Now, John Maxwell, in his book Leadership Gold, chapter 11, of all the 20-some chapters that are in this book, he says number 11 is the greatest of all those lessons on how to be a better leader, how to be the best leader. And that's keep your mind on the main thing. He talks in there about the Pareto principle, 80-20. So if you looked at your priorities for the day, if you actually ranked your priorities for the day, what would be the top two? And that probably will cover 80% of your activity for the day. So if you did those two, you'd accomplish 80% of your day. What if perhaps you looked at the bottom 8 and you said, well, those other 8 are more important. They're numbered. There's 8 of them, but they're only bringing back 20% of your day. So how can you be effective if you're only spending 20% of your day on your priorities? So figure out what the 2 are for that day and work them hard and get them completed so that you can have 80% of your day. So what's the right recipe? Well, one thing I liked in here was this thought of, will my calendar be full? Do you ask that? Do you ask about your calendar? Do you say, oh, my recipe for today is I want my calendar to be full? Because then I know I am really working. And, do we look at our day at work? So I'm kind of throwing a whole bunch of things in because we're still mixing. We're still figuring out what's going into the pot. Or who will fill my calendar. So if you are having others fill your calendar and say, you have to be in this meeting for 2 hours, and then, oh, there's a meeting right after that for another half an hour to talk about what went on in this first meeting. And, oh, by the way, there's going to be a meeting before all those 2 meetings because we need to talk about what's going to happen in the first meeting. I was in that way. In the corporate environment, in the Treasury Department, we would have a prep meeting before the main meeting, and then we would talk about the main meeting afterwards to say, okay, what were the takeaways? What were the lessons learned? So we had actually 3 meetings for that one meeting. We'd have the okay, who's going to say what's going to be said, which parts are going to be handled by whom. So our treasurer would sit us down and we'd have to figure out, okay, who's handling what part, what should we highlight, what should we not, and then go into that meeting, deliver it with our senior leaders, get all the recommendations figured out, actions that were going to take place, and then come back and figure out, okay, what was said, what can we do better, what do we promise that we're going to deliver that we weren't planning to deliver, and so forth. And okay, who's doing what and what time frame does it have to be done? Oh, the next hour. And then we're going to meet again. So how many times do you chew the same meal? How many times do you take this ramen and say, oh, hey, I want to eat it over and over and over again? You don't do that. Why do you do that in your life? Why do you keep repeating the same things that get to the same place? John Maxwell gave this guidance. He said, the person who fills my calendar determines my time. The person who determines my time determines my agenda. And the one who determines my agenda determines where I will go. So if other people are telling you what goes into your recipe, and I'm simply bringing that up for you to take a look at what makes you, and we can go in many ways, and we'll talk about this in the upcoming days, but what is it that we're looking at? What is the focus? What are the components that we're putting into our life? We talk about this, and we talked about this in some past sessions. I hope you really enjoyed getting to think about how the thoughts in your heart and the intention actions and the caring and legacy, basically putting them all together and delivering a true essence of yourself. So what are we putting in? What are all the components? And yes, we have many competing priorities. We have family, we have work, we have community, perhaps we have some volunteer. Maybe there's a play that we want to go to. There's a concert, there's a beach down here in Florida. Maybe not so much in Michigan. It's a little harder to get to, in Canada, it's a little harder to get to the beach. Maybe it's park time, maybe it's yoga, whatever. We have a lot of things that are going on, and we have to figure out who's driving who, where they're going, what time, figuring all those out. But are we plotting our calendar? So here's the thing to take a look at. What's going on in your day? Are you plotting all the components in your calendar? Are you plotting, from 5 to 6, I'm going to get up and I'm going to spend some writing time perhaps, because that's the best time for me to write. No one else is up, and that writing could be journaling, that could be writing a book, it could be, just getting ready for something else during your day that you need that time. Maybe it's devotion time, prayer time, whatever. And of course there's meals. So sketch out your day, block it out, and then say, okay, given all those activities that I know that are composing the 80% that will make me more effective, what do I have left? What do I have that I can utilize more effectively also? You do have some things where you need to, fill your calendar with things that you're going to do, people that you want to meet and have those conversations, or to do things with people that will advance you, your thought, your discussion. Perhaps it's a group to hang out with after work. Social time's great. Don't take that away, but manage it. Manage the priorities in your day and your time, your balanced life that you keep asking for. My clients keep asking for this. I'm sure you are looking for this in your life, is really, how do I balance my life? Well, you balance it by managing your priorities. You don't manage it by managing time. You can't manage time, but you can manage how much attention you're giving to each of your activities. So, as like the instructions on the back here, let's say boil 2 cups of water in a saucepan, add noodles, and cook 3 minutes, stirring occasionally. That's step 1. Don't go over 3 minutes. Don't go under 3 minutes. For 3 minutes, you need to, cook this once you've got it in. There's a certain amount of time, but then what do you do with the rest of your time? You're watching the pot boil. It says turn off heat, stir well for 1 minute. So what are the steps that you're doing in your life on a daily basis? And are they adding and completing that 80% of your day and making you a better, well-rounded person? Or are they just going through the day, checking it off and saying, oh, lunchtime, I'm good for the next hour? If it's lunchtime, what are you doing during lunch? Are you having a meaningful conversation? Are you using the time effectively to advance yourself, to get the questions of creativity and curiosity built? We'll be talking more of this in the episodes to come, but I wanted to share with you the right recipe starts with you and what you want to accomplish in your day. All I can do is come alongside and say, are you using your time effectively? What does that look like? What does your day look like if you were to use your time effectively? Be well. And if you want, we're having a class to look at, not so much a class, but a discussion, a work-focused time for you to be able to say, Joe, that makes sense. I'm really not sure how to go about prioritizing my day, what it means, what I'm looking for, what I'm here to do. Or perhaps if I was just able to do this more effectively, I would have a better day. Yes, I agree. If I stop allowing other people to put their agenda on my calendar, I would have time for me and be able to take that time and say, I'm in charge of my calendar. I'm in charge of what I want to do. I'm in charge of what gets done in my life. I'm in charge. And if I can hit that 80%, those top two things, I'll be much further ahead than what I'm doing right now, running around and just checking things off a list that don't get me any further towards fulfillment in my life and a greater rewarding life, a balanced life. So take time today, go visit insideout817.eventb.com. That's insideout817eventb.com. It's a class with my business partner, but it's more than a class. It will help you take a look in a short amount of time to straighten out your calendar, straighten out what you're focusing on, getting the right recipe for your life. That's it for lunch. I hope you have had a good one. See you soon.